You quit your job and hit 100,000 subscribers in 6 months after starting your channel by posting once a day. How did you do it? David, welcome to the 1 of 10 podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Richard. It's true. I quit my job and yeah, you've been helping me with my channel. So, thank you for your help and thank you for the audience watching for helping me support me. I now have 233,000 subscribers. I started last year. I started my show, The David Lin Report, in March 2023. So it's been 1 year and 6 months, 7 months now.
That's basically one of the fastest YouTube channel I've heard grow, especially in a very saturated niche, the finance niche, right? Maybe it'd be interesting for people to understand how did you start into that world and how did you blow up? Basically 100K subs in 6 months.
Yeah, I think to give some context, I already had an audience because I was working for another YouTube channel before that. I was an anchor for another channel. That was my job. I was a producer and then an anchor, and I worked there for 3 years as anchor, 5 years total. And I already kind of grew an audience. I already had a following on Twitter, X now, and I was already getting them like almost 80,000 to 100,000 views a day before I left. And so the audience was already there. And when I left, I announced that I was starting my own channel, and a lot of people followed me over. A bit of context, I got 10,000 subscribers on my first video. Actually, I was, if you guys followed Altcoin Daily, they interviewed me before I started my channel to ask me why I'm starting my channel. And that helped me get a few subscribers even before I started. So basically, other influencers helped me in my first week. And then by my first month, I was already at 30,000 subscribers, which is kind of, a lot of that was the audience that carried over from the previous channel. And then from there, I started growing into a broader audience. By August 2023, I reached 100K subscribers. That was a magical night. I was at the gym. I was just scrolling, refreshing, 99,995, and then it kept going up. And then once it hit, I got some bubble tea and I relaxed. So that was good. And
That's
before then,
specific, yeah.
yeah, I know I didn't celebrate more dramatically, but for me it was nice. Before I was in the YouTube world, I was a financial analyst at a firm called BCA Research. So I have a finance and econ background, and that's my niche now is finance and econ, economics news. And my strategy starting from the beginning, I don't know, we'll talk more about my strategy later, but just to give you a bit of background now, my strategy from the very beginning was to post at least once a day, average. So now it's more like twice a day. But, the channel is about financial news. And so everything is updated on a very fast pace. And every day there's new things to talk about. So it's important to publish regularly.
And we're going to get to that on how you actually managed to post daily. Before being an anchor, you were also doing random videos online, right? In the music world.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me.
That's how we started.
I had a music channel. Don't pretend like you don't remember this. Okay, you helped me film some of these. Yeah, I remember.
Exactly.
Yeah, remember that we had a dancer in the snow, and then I was playing. Yeah, I have a music channel that I do. I did, and I still there, but I used to post music videos, covers of like pop songs. I play violin and piano, and then sometimes I would get like singers and dancers to collaborate with me. I know there was one. This is Richard's idea. Can I plug this?
Yeah.
This was Richard's idea. He was like, it'd be cool if you light your violin on fire. I'm like, okay, like what kind of how are you gonna do this? So it was a cover of Frozen when the first Frozen film came out, or the second one. I can't remember, but it was trending. And then Richard was like, oh, you got to make a cover of this song, and then you got to so we had like a fire and ice theme. And then remember you were like, let's burn this violin. So I bought this cheap Amazon violin for like $50, and then I put like I put some gasoline on like a towel. I wrapped it. We were in the forest. You helped me film this, and then we just lit it on fire. And we had another friend on standby with a fire extinguisher. Remember that? He was just standing there with a fire extinguisher in case I burn. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And actually, that idea led to another idea I gave to another YouTuber to put
Really?
his sword on fire, and that
Oh
led
yeah.
to millions of views for him,
Really? Okay. Well,
which is
I didn't
crazy.
get millions
So
of views on
so
this.
that helped
No,
out.
we had a dancer, and I remember I was like, the shot was to have snow on the dancer in slow mo. So I circled around the dancer with my camera on a gimbal, and then Richard was like throwing snow on her because it wasn't actually snowing. So I had to like create fake snow. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. So I did do some random videos on the side
There was
before.
also the idea of going to a Comic Con conference, to Comic Con basically
Yeah,
in
that
the
was my
city.
first viral video. Yeah, yeah. Tell us. Yeah, yeah.
And
It
those
was
who
your
don't
idea
know,
too.
you're basically a genius violinist. You can play what you hear. So I was like, let's go to Comic Con and try like cool songs like Spider Man and Zelda. And you pulled it off, and it hit your first 100K views there.
Yeah, that was my first video ever on YouTube. Not even my current main channel, like ever. 100K views. I was, yeah, again, great idea. You talked me into it because I was like, what is this dumb idea? He's like, go to Comic Con and just play whatever theme song people have. I'm like, why am I doing this?
But for
And
me, it
that's a
was
lot of
one of
fun.
the beginnings of like loving the world of YouTube, of filming
Okay.
all that, and why I'm saying this story is because I want to show people that no one blows up like this. It's all like a process. Like you started basically, yeah, working in finance, but
Mm-hmm.
then you did those violin videos, and then after you became an anchor, and now your own show,
Hmm.
and and soon a whole network.
Actually,
I'm
I
sure.
know this is your interview, but I'm curious to get your thoughts because you're an expert. Do you know any big channels that just blow up from zero with no background in finance or not finance, but YouTubing or media or anything before? Like they weren't a Twitch streamer or they weren't famous before. Does that happen
Uh,
sometimes or
Yeah,
often?
yeah, of course. It happens. Definitely there are people who blow up, but there's always a reason behind it. Either they've been studying YouTube for a while
Mhm.
and consuming like how to improve their content or how to optimize to grow on YouTube, or they've been at it for years but trying different channels. Either they were in the Minecraft world or let's say Roblox now, but
Mhm.
now then started a totally different channel and then start blowing up there. There's always a reason behind it. It's never just luck. And before getting into that, let me tell you about how the 1 of 10 strategy team can help you grow your channel much faster and make more money. Our team has directly worked with over 100 YouTubers to grow their channels by optimizing their content, focusing on the right strategies. So for example, here's a video idea, title, and thumbnail that we crafted for Mike Shake that ended up getting 22 million views and being his most popular video of all time. Another example is the content strategy we built for Callaway, helping him go from 0 to 70,000 subscribers and grow a 6-figure business on top of that. And those are only just 2 of many creators the team has worked with in the past 6 years. So if you're ready to take your channel to the next level in the next 90 days with daily support, video reviews, winning ideas, titles, and thumbnails, and even 2 calls per month to answer all your questions, head over to oneoften.com/strategy to book a call. What made you quit your job and start on your own?
I wanted to start my channel, which is why I quit my job. So I mean, you know the story, but I'll tell it to the audience. I resigned in November 2022. I officially left in January 2023, so I gave them 2 months notice, and I started my channel in March. So I had basically February I took off. I was preparing for my new channel, and before November 2022, I've been thinking about it for about a good 6 months, just thinking about it casually. Like, is it possible? What's my next career move? I had considered several career moves. I considered either staying in my current job at the time as a news anchor. I considered going back to school for MBA. And then I consider starting my own business. It's like, okay, well, if I start my own business, what could it be? What do I like? What am I good at? And ultimately, I decided on starting my own business, which was the riskiest move because, there was no guarantee that I would have any audience. And I interviewed people for my show. There was no guarantee that people would come on my new show. There was no brand backing. It was a brand new channel, 0 subscribers, no views. Like, why would people come on? Right. So I would have no content. I would have no viewers. Monetization, which we can talk about later. There was no guarantee I would be monetized at all. So I was basically jumping into a scenario where the worst case scenario is no views, no money, and no guests, no content. Right. So I did a calculation. I thought that was unlikely. It was 50-50. I would get some views. And even if I get a little bit of viewership at the beginning, I could build that up. So that was my rationale for quitting. and the first year exceeded my targets, so that was good.
Oh, actually, I have the video of you
Yeah,
predicting your 1 year. Oh, I could put that.
50,000
I'll put that
subscribers.
here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What do you want in 1 year? Say your goals.
My goal, 50,000. I think at the time I was being like optimistic. I wasn't expecting 50,000, but in 1 year I got March to March. It was, yeah, by March this year it was like 120,000.
Yeah.
So exceeded it by twice.
That's really impressive. And
Yeah.
that's what we're going to deep dive here. How
Yeah.
did you actually blow up? Because, yes, you did have an initial audience. I think you had maybe between 10, 20,000 followers on Twitter.
Sure.
But we see a lot of those personal brand going on YouTube, but then they're getting hundreds of views. Yet you're now getting hundreds of thousands of views per video. So let's deep dive. What made you want to go daily instead of once a week, first of all? Because I know this is a big reason why you blew up, is because you went insane and went one interview per day, where most people do once a week.
Style of my videos is very mostly it's time sensitive, not always. I do have some evergreen content. I would say most of my content could be evergreen, but it's not like a Lex Friedman style where he goes on, where even Joe Rogan, he does a couple times a week, and they have a shelf life of many months. Most of my videos, because I cover financial news, because markets move on a daily basis, most of my videos have a shelf life of 24 to 48 hours. So you can see the views peak around 48 hours and then it plateaus. And I've known this because that was my niche. And so that was the model going into my new venture. And I knew I would have to develop a workflow that allowed me to publish every single day. The objective at the time was twice a day. I can only manage once a day because it was by myself at the time. When I first started, I had no editors, no producers. It was just me, a one-man shop. So I could only manage one video a day. Now I'm publishing 2 to 3 times a day because I have a team. The idea is just to publish every single day, update the audience on what is happening that day on the markets. By every day, I mean Saturday and Sunday. So 7 days a week. So I was publishing anywhere between 20 to 30 videos a month in the very beginning. And I think people talk about consistency being a key factor in the algo helping you out. And I think consistency could be a number of things. It could be, once a week, twice a week, whatever rhythm you develop for yourself, keep that consistent. My consistency frequency was just once a day. So I stuck to that and I didn't deviate from that for as much as I can.
How long were you solo? Doing everything, thumbnail, editing?
I started in March. I had no help until basically October. I had an editor
until you're 100K basically.
Yes. Yeah. I had an editor work. He reached out to me. He said, "Hey, can I work for you for free? I just like your content. I want to learn." I said, "Sure." He was helping me part-time. And he wasn't really contributing on a daily basis. He was just helping me with some shorts here and there. And then I trained him to do my long form. He was really good. So I gave him a full-time offer by like November. But by then I already surpassed 100K subscribers. I got a producer by October, November as well. So basically I had a full-time team. And the editor, I gave him a full-time contract starting this year, January. So basically I have a full-time team now, and they started last fall. For the first 7 months, it was just for me.
Which is crazy to think, because again, you are posting daily. Like how many hours a week were you working?
So my workflow was I would start at my interviews, because I live in Vancouver, so West Coast. Most of my guests that I interview for my channel, and again, people can check out my channel, David Lin Report. I interview people. That's my show. And so I have to work on their schedule. So most of them are based on the East Coast, US or Europe. So I have to start really early. My interviews would start like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. my time latest. So which means I have to be up maybe 7, 8 o'clock to start preparing. And I would film, I would edit it, and then by mid-afternoon, I would post a video. It would take me 2-3 hours to edit a video, depending on how long it is. If it's a 30-minute video, maybe 2 hours. If it's longer, maybe 3 to 4 hours to edit. And sometimes I would usually prefer to film twice a day. So I would film 2 interviews in the morning. By noon, I would edit one, post one. I would edit the second one after I post the first video, and the second one we would post it the following day. So the following morning, I would have some content, and then I would continue the process the following day. Post a video in the morning that I filmed yesterday, and then film again new interviews, and then post this new interview later on that day. So I would have a continuous flow of content. Usually, to answer your question, I would start maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. I would finish filming maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, finish editing at maybe, let's say, 3, 4 o'clock, sometimes 6 o'clock. I take a break. I take a lunch break before that. I would take a break after I finish posting. Come back, edit the video for the next day, go to the gym, come back. I would prepare for the video for the next day. By then, after my gym routine, it's like 10 o'clock in the evening. I'd have dinner at around 11 o'clock, prepare for the next day, answer emails, do sponsorship stuff at night when it's not like peak production hours, and then I go to bed around midnight. So yeah, like 15 hours every day. I take like half a day off Sunday.
So that's quick math. It's like 90 hours a week.
80, I would say 80 hours a week, yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. But again, it's to show the viewers, right, that it is possible to blow up, but you got to put in the hours. If not, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Richard. I would agree with you there.
No, because a lot of people will be like, be too perfectionist, right? They'll be like, oh, I got to make the best video. And instead of posting, like you, let's say once a day or at least once a week, they're going to be posting once every 3 months or every 2 months when they're just starting off. Whereas you showed, man, 80 hours a week nonstop, and you can see your calendar. Like every single day you've posted for a year.
Let me just comment on the perfectionism part, because that's a great point. A lot of people call themselves perfectionists. I don't consider myself a perfectionist. I have a certain standard. Once my video is good enough for that standard, I post. And like, there's no such thing for me as a perfect product. If you look at my earliest videos from my start of the channel to now, there's like an improvement in video quality. There's an improvement in production value. Obviously, I have a professional team now editing my videos. They're better than me. So there's like it keeps getting better, and it will continue to get better in the future years. So there's no such thing as a perfect product. If you wait for one, you'll never launch anything. Your product will increase or improve over time once you do it. And the perfectionist attitude, sometimes you have this fixed mentality of like, I've got to create a certain perfect quality product. And that kind of thinking is a little bit too rigid, because sometimes people will stick to a plan without adapting when new information comes in or new circumstances change. So I don't like having this perfectionist attitude, like you have to have a perfect product before you launch, because it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's what I think, and it's what we're doing with this podcast. I was always like in the fast ship mentality. That's what we did with 1 of 10, fast shipping in 3 months and see what happens. Same with this pod. I was like, all right, let's fast ship this. Let's post once, even twice a week, and see what happens. Over time, we've upgraded like the equipment, the editing, the way of me asking questions. This one is a different format, but I think again, it's a test, and we'll see how it goes. Guys, keep staying so that I can see the retention high.
Yeah, follow Richard. Yeah. If you haven't subscribed, follow Richard, or I'm going to find you. Subscribe to this channel. Yeah.
But as we're doing now our floor of a few hundred views is now a few thousands of views, which is fun to see. And so things are going well. And your big inspiration is, in the end, what I want to tell you. You're actually my role model. Thank you for being here.
I mean, you work with a lot of people. You work with Mr. Beast. I'm your role model? Well, thanks, Richard. Okay. I'm honored.
Top. You're there, Mr. Beast, here.
Okay. All right. Thanks, I guess.
So you said you've went from one channel to the other, right? You were the anchor, and then you started this. I know for a fact that people love you for how professional and good your questions were. So I was wondering, how do you prep for that? Why do you think people think that of you?
I like to study the subject before. A lot of news anchors on TV, especially mainstream TV. I'm not here to, I'm not here to put down mainstream TV. I'm just saying one of the criticisms of, like, let's say a news channel on mainstream TV is you have these 5-minute segments, 6-minute segments, and the guest says something very short and it doesn't have time to elaborate. The news anchor follows a script. Even in podcasts for a lot of finance channels, I can see that. And I get this feedback from the guests I interviewed. They're like, oh, I can say something. They have a pre-written set of questions and they just stick to the script. They don't respond to what I'm saying. I can be saying something like, oh, I think the market's going to go up. My house is on fire. And they won't respond to the second part. It's like, They just don't listen. So my approach is not to have a pre-written set of questions all the time. I have a list of topics I want to cover. I research a bunch of stats, but my approach is just understand the topic, understand the direction that I want to take, and really understand the guest as well before we do the interview. And so I'm just having a conversation. I'm not reading a set of questions and not responding to the guest. I'm asking follow-up questions. And I think people like the authenticity of the conversation. They know it's not pre-scripted. In other words, the guest and me, that we don't plan this out. It's not a fake show. It's just real conversation. The other thing I think people like is how I engage the guest with like stats and I like to show my screen, for example. I like to show them live charts. I read to them articles. I show them video clips. So I get them to react to things on the spot. So it makes a more engaging experience. And I think also people like the fact that I give my guests time to elaborate their answers, and I don't cut them off just for timing reasons. So I think those are some of the things I like to focus on.
I like the point of showing stats and stuff. I could do that with guests, basically showing a graph or
Yeah, I just share my
thumbnail,
screen and I
whatever.
say, "Hey, here's a graph of whatever. What do you think of this?" Or I play them a clip of Donald Trump saying something, and then how do what's your reaction to this? It broadens the range of topics.
What's your process to book those guests? And I know you had big ones like Rich Dad or Kevin
Yeah.
O'Leary.
And just to follow up on my previous answer, one of the things that I know you're a fan of for my process, because you asked me about my process, I actually sometimes think about the title before I do anything.
Yes.
So sometimes I think, what's a title relevant to the markets this week that I would click on? So for example, let's say the Bitcoin price is crashing. It's not right now, but let's suppose it is, right? It's going from 90,000 to 50,000 in a week. So the obvious question I would ask is, why is the Bitcoin price crashing? So if that's the title, then I would find someone that could help me answer that question. So sometimes I like to reverse engineer a result before I even book the guest. And that's part of the process for booking guests. There are two ways to book a guest. One, I would think about the topic first, which is what I just said. Bitcoin is crashing. Who can I have? Which kind of guest would I have that can help me with understanding the current Bitcoin market? So I have a roster of people that I know are good Bitcoin technical analysts. Or sometimes I just, if I need someone fast, like I need someone tomorrow, I'll just hit up somebody I already know. If I'm looking for new people, I'm always my producer and we're always looking on Twitter for new analysts. We're always watching TV on other channels for other people. So I just basically go online and see who else is on other shows, who else is on mainstream TV. I read a lot of newspaper, Financial Times, CNBC, Wall Street Journal. If I like someone's commentary, I'll reach out to them. Economists from various think tanks are always on my radar. So I have like a few things I'm always constantly checking. Now, the other way to get guests is sometimes I just want one person. So let's say you mentioned Rich Dad. So Robert Kiyosaki, he was on the show a couple of times. Let's say I want him on the show. I don't know exactly what I'll be talking to him about, but I just know that I want to speak to him this week because he's an excellent guest. And then I would start to think about some topics that he could answer that's relevant to the news of that week. So there's two ways to do it. The first way, like I said, is just you come up with a topic first, then you find the guest that can match that topic. The second way is if you know of somebody famous where you want to interview somebody that you would like to talk to that week, book him first, then come up with the topics later.
And yeah, so getting those big guests that you don't know, how do you get them?
Cold call or email. We find their either their emails or their PR's emails, or if they work for a firm, they have a PR email or their assistant's emails. And it's just straightforward emailing. There's nothing fancy about that. We'll make contact. If you don't mind, I'll share my screen here. All right. So here, it's a draft. So this is kind of like a draft template that I sent to people. So my name is blah, blah, blah. And then my channel is dedicated to reporting on finance. It's, I have to update these stats in every email. I changed my bio, obviously, as time progresses. But basically, I send a bio. I send them the purpose of reaching out to them. So at the top, it's like, would you like to come on for an interview on Zoom to talk about XYZ topic? Are you free on these dates? And I usually send them a list of a few interviews I've done, like a few reference interviews I've done in the past. So like interviews that I think are good that they would resonate with, or that they would relate to. So let's say if I book an economist, I would send them a few examples of economists I've had on. Like I've had on Eugene Fama, who was a Nobel laureate. I interviewed recently Simon Johnson, who is a 2024 Nobel laureate in economics. If I reach a if I
Michael
reach out to
Saylor.
Michael Saylor, I've had on for Bitcoin people. Yeah, because everyone in Bitcoin knows Michael Saylor, right? Ron Paul for politicians, more economists. Steve Hanke is a famous economist. John Cochran, a bunch of fund managers. If people want to see that I've interviewed fund managers before, because they always ask me, like, have you interviewed fund managers? Here's a list. So I have different guests for different sectors, different types of people. I've interviewed analysts, politicians, fund managers, Bitcoin people, gold people, like pretty much people in every sector. So I just send them examples of high profile guests, so they know I'm like legit. I'm not like a joke. And I send them some stats. Usually my stats change. Currently, I'm averaging 2.5 to 3 million views a month. So I send them that, and then that's usually enough.
And then what would you say is the percentage of people answering back?
I don't know the exact number. I don't want to make one up. I would say less than 50%.
Okay.
Say like 30% if I have to estimate. A lot of them who don't accept the first time end up coming back several months later. Yeah, when we follow up. Sometimes it's the timing issue, right? It's like, I'm not free now, reach back in a few months. That's kind of a yes. But sometimes it's like they don't respond, and I just follow up in a few months, and then they'll come back for whatever reason. Some people are just not interested, so no point following up.
Talking about those interviews with those guests, how do you balance creating accessible content for beginners while mixing deep diving for seasoned investors?
The audience watching my channel, I wouldn't say are true beginners in the sense that they know absolutely nothing about finance or economics. I don't dumb down my content for absolute beginners. I think that's not really my channel. And if you look at my comments, most people who comment are pretty sophisticated, I would say. Now, I'm not trying to target a true beginner audience, although that's sometimes something I think about. And I think I've built my niche as somebody who makes pretty high quality content that is for people who already know a little bit about financial news. Because think about why you would be following financial news. You already are interested in the economy, or you're interested about markets because you're personally investing, or you're just interested, where you're studying economics, whatever the case may be. So you know a little bit about it before you would even click on it. And if you don't know the channel at all, you see a thumbnail like, how is China going to respond to tariffs? Well, you probably wouldn't click on that unless you know what a tariff is, or if you're following the news, right? So it's not for someone who has no exposure to finance whatsoever. But your question is valid, and I often think about, how do I attract people in all walks of life? Because one of my core missions is to help as many people and educate as many people as possible, because the economy affects everybody. It doesn't matter what your profession is. You're all affected by what's going on. We are all affected by what's going on in the economy. So how do I reach, let's say, a doctor or a car mechanic who doesn't follow financial news? Well, I talk about things that they would be interested in under the umbrella of finance. For example, price inflation from tariffs. Let's say we have tariffs from Trump, and other countries retaliate with their own tariffs. Well, the price of goods, some people speculate, may go up if you import goods from China. Your Amazon, where Temu purchases, right, your dollar store stuff, those prices will all go up. That's going to affect everybody. So I kind of talk about some themes that would be relatable to everybody. One of my most popular videos was an interview with Alan Glickman that got like 1.3 million views. He was predicting who would win the presidential election. He predicted Kamala. Donald Trump actually won. And I think this was his first incorrect prediction since 1980, if you don't count the Gore versus Bush election. But anyway, that obviously is something that appeals to a lot of people, if people who aren't actively following finance. So to answer your question shortly, I don't have an agenda to make content for beginners, but I do want to make content that appeals to as many people as possible, because I want more views.
And after 600 episodes filmed, yeah,
I don't even know. Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it.
yeah,
Okay.
I
All
do my
right.
research. So yeah, after those 600 episodes, you've had a lot of mistakes. What are things you think you've learned in the past year and a half that, if going back, you would now know how to solve it?
In the very beginning, I would kind of just book guests for the sake of filling up a slot.
Mm.
And that's one of my mistakes is like, okay, well, I don't have anyone on Thursday. Let's just get somebody. Um, I would, looking back, I would rather not post anything on that Thursday than get something that isn't great quality. Um, I would rather not have the 20,000 or 15,000 or 25,000 views or whatever, and just focus on producing what I believe would be bigger hit videos in the very beginning. Because if you look at, let's say, the ratio of subscribers to views, that ratio is not always the same.
Mm.
Let's take two examples. You have two videos. One video has 100,000 views. Another video has, let's say, I'll make the math simple, 10,000 views. Okay. Now, in the second example, the video that has 10,000 views only, I may get only 10 new subscribers from 10,000 views. That is not a great ratio. That's less than 1%, right? That's,
Hmm.
yeah, 1,000 is 10%, 100 is 1%. So that's 0.1% of my views are new subscribers. Let's take now the video with 100,000 views. Can we apply the same ratio? No, we cannot. That video with 100,000 views will most likely, or almost always, have a higher view count to subscriber ratio, or another way around, subscriber to view count ratio than the video with fewer views. So that video with 100,000 views may have 1,000 new subscribers. Yeah, which is a significant improvement over only 10 subscribers from 10,000 views. All I'm saying is usually videos with higher views have more engagement and are of higher quality, or at least more popular for them to get 100,000 views. And so I would rather dedicate my time to making a video that I believe would be closer to 100,000 views, which would get me more subscribers than if I make 3 videos that get fewer views.
But my question here is, what do you consider high quality? How do you
Yeah,
know it'll be higher quality?
that is a very good question. That's subjective. I will admit that in the very beginning, I'm often wrong when I'm judging, because it's like I'm interviewing someone about a subject. It's like, I think this is interesting, and it just doesn't resonate with the audience. I believe the higher quality conversation, this is a purely subjective metric that only you would know after you're filmed. And I've done literally thousands of interviews over the last 5 to 6 years. After a conversation, I'm like, have I learned something from this person? Has this person given a lot of facts to support his thesis? Does his investment thesis make sense? Was it engaging? Was I interested throughout the conversation? These are some of the things that are all subjective, all qualitative, that you come out with at the end of the interview. So basically, it's a gut feel is my answer. Sometimes my gut feeling has been wrong, but as I've done more and more of these throughout the last year, my gut feeling has been more aligned with the audience. In other words, I would come out of the interview
Mm.
knowing sometimes if an interview has potential to do well, if it's going to resonate with the audience, and then I would prioritize posting schedule according to that interview. I've been wrong, and I've been surprised on the upside. Even this week, I posted a video about China. Geopolitical interviews on my channel historically have not done well. This interview currently has more than 80,000 views in just less than 48 hours, and I was very surprised by that. So it's a gut feeling that you walk out of. I really can't give you anything quantitative. Rather, obviously, in post, after you post it, you can look at quantitative measures, right? Retention rate is higher for these higher quality videos. The engagement rate is higher. You have more comments, more likes, more shares. So all these metrics that show higher engagement usually point to higher quality. There's a direct correlation. And um, another thing that's qualitative when I judge a quality video is whether or not it just makes sense from a financial perspective, because sometimes you hear these people on financial news, they just make all these wild predictions, like, I think the stock market's gonna like blow up tomorrow, or I think the dollar is gonna crash by next month, and you get these sensational headlines, but they're just wrong. They don't make any sense. Where a lot of people make all these financial conspiracy theories that just are just wrong, and they get a lot of clicks because it's sensational, and you're like, wow, did you know what was Trump really almost assassinated by like some guy from Mars? Were aliens involved? I'm making a stupid example, but you see a lot of stupid headlines out there that get clicks, but there's no substance and actual like quality to the discussion itself. So in that particular case, there's no correlation between views and quality. In my case, however, because my audience is pretty well educated, I would say based on their comments, they're pretty sophisticated, there is a direct correlation. If I post something that's just stupid, I'm not going to get a lot of views.
You're in a very saturated market, the finance niche. You're not the first to do a finance news daily or weekly, right? Why do you think you shot over everyone else so fast versus all of them being there for many years?
You know what's interesting? Because I remember when I first started doing this in 2020, my manager before me who left for another channel, that's how I got the anchor position. They were still making videos that were 11 minutes long at most. And I remember making like a 20-minute video when people were complaining, like, why are you making videos that are twice as long as what we're used to? And my answer to that at the time was, well, because I have more time to flesh out more ideas and engagement is still there. So I realized, and I don't know if I was the first to do this. I don't think so. But in the financial arena, before I started, I didn't notice a lot of people in the finance podcast niche making a lot of long form videos. Again, if you look at Fox or CNBC or Bloomberg, they have a 24/7 live news cable program, but it's mostly just short clips, short interviews. And I remember telling my team at the time, I said, look, one of the benefits we have as YouTubers and not cable news people is that we don't have a time limit. Because if you're on cable news, if you're on CNBC, you have to adhere to a time slot. So it's not really the anchor's fault. They just have like a slot, and then it's commercial break, and then it's time to on to the next program because everything's live. We don't have that constraint on YouTube. And so let's take our time to flesh out all the ideas and present as much information, high quality information as possible. A lot of people disagree with me at the time. There's a lot of resistance within the organization. The editors had more work, obviously. The managers were like, why don't you make 3 videos a day? And the amount of time you take to make 3 videos a day, you're only making 1. Well, the answer to that is, first of all, total watch hours for my longer form video is still higher than the 3 shorter videos, right? And the total watch hours is what YouTube really looks at. And second, the engagement for the longer video is going to be higher for the longer form video than the shorter videos. So I think one of the things I started doing differently from my peers at the time when I first started was my videos were simply just longer. And whether or not YouTube pushed that more, I don't know. I can't tell you, but I did get more engagement with a 25-minute video than a 5-minute video. And I remember my colleagues telling me, why don't you just do a 5-minute interview? I said, on what? You get one question? It's like, yeah, just get a price update. I said, that's just stupid. I mean, there were a lot of stupid ideas being passed around. But anyway, best of luck to them. I stuck to my guns, even though everyone disagreed with me, but I still stuck to it. And it worked out. After I started doing it, everyone in that space started copying that format. I don't know if they were copying me or just at the same time doing the same thing, but there were so many channels that just popped up and everybody was doing 30-minute interviews, 25-minute interviews of finance. A lot of them were just interviewing the people I interviewed. So I think I just have a first mover advantage in the space. That's number one. Number two, I really believe that I put a lot of emphasis on research and understanding the topic and having a real conversation with people. I like to come out of the interview having learned something myself. That's how I know if I've added value to somebody.
I'm sure that's what the audience appreciated is the fact that you put so much time on research, and that's why I'm sure your returning viewership is pretty high.
I would say I think the level of research that I put in, plus the fact that I was the first to try many things, including a longer form finance podcast, I think that helped.
Quick break from the pod to tell you about 1of10.com, a powerful tool to help you grow faster on YouTube. Check this out. Using 1of10, this creator took inspiration from this viral idea and combined it with this thumbnail concept. And the result? Her most viewed video with more than 2 million views. By focusing on the right idea, title, and thumbnail, you're setting your videos up to go viral. 1of10 includes a suite of tools specifically designed to highlight overperforming videos and spark inspiration to find your next viral idea in just minutes. And the best part, with code POD50, you'll get 50% off for life. That means just one video with 25,000 views can cover an entire year's cost. So if you want to grow your channel faster, head over to oneof10.com. Now back to the pod. You're now at 220k subs, for over 40 million long form views. What does your team look like? How are you posting 2-3 times a week, 7 days a week?
Right now, I'm posting. Well, today is American Thanksgiving, so I only want to post once today. But usually it's twice a day, and then once to twice on the weekends. So 10 to 14 times a week. My goal is to get that up to 2 to 3 times a day. Right now, my team looks like one producer who helps me with bookings and some questions and ideas. Questions I can come up with, research I can do, but new ideas that I haven't thought of, that's what's most valuable to me. So I have a producer, and I would say 90% of the value of the money that I use to pay him with is just from him giving me new ideas that I've never thought of. That's the most valuable thing to me.
When you say new ideas, you mean basically new guests in a new space?
Yeah, new guests for topics. What are we talking about this week? New guests that I haven't even seen before or heard about before. Yeah, he's done a great job. I have a great team. I had one editor up until now. He started late last year, like I said, and then I just hired a second editor like last week. So now I have 2 editors, 1 producer. My next hire will be a second producer to help me with more post-production and more idea generation. And then I don't have a dedicated salesperson for ads, but I have like agents working across different industries, and I pay them on a commission basis.
Can you talk more about that? Because you do have
Sure.
an interesting model there for sponsorship.
Sponsorships in particular, I have I'm working with several people who are connected with different agents and different companies, and basically it's pretty simple. They work freelance, so they bring me whatever deals they can find regularly, and then I pay them a fixed commission on every single deal.
But you have one that's an expert in like the mining niche, right? And
I have a few
non-expert
people
more.
in mining. I have a few people who are connected with a lot of tech companies. I have like a guy who was like connected with a lot of crypto companies. So I just, different industries have different niches, and different niches have different people who know that niche well, and I just work across different niches.
How has your sponsorship changed from when you started to now?
Well, when I started, I didn't have anyone helping me bring deals. So, it's an interesting question, because when I first started, I had no idea how to price some of my deals.
Mm-hmm.
So I had, obviously I knew what my last company was charging people, so I had that baseline. And then pretty soon I was realizing that some of that is just not the market rate. So working with other people made me familiarize myself more with the market rates better. So at the beginning, I was just kind of like throwing out numbers, see what people agree to. Now I have more standardized rates. My sponsorship has changed also because I think I have different types of sponsorship vehicles now. In the beginning, it was just like sponsored interview. It's like somebody like a sponsored company would pay to have a CEO come on the show for an interview. Obviously, you have to disclose that. Now it's evolved into several different things. I have like integrations, like a 60-second ad that I would place like in the first half or first third of the video. Sometimes it would just be like a company shout out, like, hey, XYZ company sponsored today, check out their product, link down below. And then they would pay me on an affiliate basis. Basically, they would give me a percentage of the sales that come from my link. I would also get deals where it's like a combination of everything. Some people will pay for a sponsored interview, plus they would want a few integrations. So I'm selling packages now. So now, and I have a newsletter that I launched this summer. So that's also another way for sponsors to reach my audience. So my sponsorship monetization has progressed in a few ways. One, I have more products, and now I'm packaging things, multiple products per package for people. And then I'm always coming up with new products and ideas for my next type of sponsorship. But currently, right now, it's mostly just integrations, affiliate links, affiliate sales, and sponsored interviews.
Do you have all your, let's say you're uploading 60 videos per month. Do you have all your slots taken now? How's that looking like?
No, I have like less than half.
Are you aiming to fill it all up?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to have close to 90% all videos slotted with ads.
As we talked about, you grew so fast. What are the topics that have done well for you to grow so fast?
Well, I'm a finance channel, so whenever there are periods of volatility in the markets, which means if stocks or Bitcoin or the markets move up and down very quickly, covering that volatility is important because people want to know what's going on with their investments. Why is it going up? Why is it going down? So periods of volatility covering broad markets is always important. General economic themes. I had a great debate with Richard Wolff, who was a professor of economics. He taught at Yale and a bunch of other places, Harvard PhD, also went to Stanford, very famous. He's considered a Marxist economist, so he likes to teach, or he likes to not teach, but he supports the Marxist point of view. I had a communism versus capitalism debate featuring Richard Wolff and Arthur Laffer. Arthur Laffer, for example, was his opponent, debate opponent, and Art Laffer was famous for being the father of supply side economics. You read about him in textbooks. He was an economic advisor to Ronald Reagan, President Reagan in the 80s. So those kinds of topics do well. That video, I think I showed you this the other day. That video didn't get a lot of views initially, but because it had evergreen themes, it got picked up later in the year, and it like grew from like 20,000 to like all of a sudden went to 100, and now it's like at 300,000. So thematic videos about financial and economic themes, topics or ideas do well. But if you think about the finance world, the biggest asset classes require the most coverage. So stock markets, bond markets, things that have a larger market cap have more audience and more people following it usually. And so I just basically cover what's big.
Have you seen an uptick since the election?
In the first week, yeah, there was a huge spike in viewership because markets moved on Trump's win. Now things are settled down a little bit, but it's still, I'm finding every week there's new topics to talk about. Right now it's tariffs, and so my China video, Bitcoin 100K video, Bitcoin at 100K. So Bitcoin videos are doing well. So every week I just find what's important and what's trending in the finance space, and I cover that. So basically, that's another way my strategy has evolved. Instead of just because I'm able to publish more frequently and have a faster turnaround time because I have a team now, whereas before it was just me, I'm able to publish with a faster turnaround time, which means I'm able to cover topical issues more. Topical issues, to answer your question in brief, topical issues do better for my show because I'm a news channel. People want to find out what's going on today. If I film something about, what do you think the markets are going to go? I filmed it a couple of days ago and I posted, a couple of days later, but by then it's probably not so relevant and the viewership doesn't do as well. So people want to find out what's happening that day or that week as opposed to just longer term predictions, which I find sometimes doesn't always do very well.
How fast can you turn around a video after filming?
Well, that depends on the type of video and how much editing is required for adding graphics. The fastest is 15 minutes. That was today. Okay. So I filmed an interview with somebody. He shared his screen, kind of like what I did now, and then he just left it there. He had all the charts. So basically, I sent it to my editor. He put the clips together. He added elements, cleaned up the audio, and he did it in 20 minutes.
So you're talking to all those finance experts. What's the market looking like? What are experts saying? Let the viewers know here.
Well, you should watch my show for the expert advice. They're the experts, not me. But I think right now the sentiment right now is pretty bullish. Most people I'm talking to are expecting the short-term momentum for Bitcoin and stocks to continue at least into the new year. So fewer people are predicting a recession now. So the sentiment has shifted from more negative last year to a little more positive this year.
True. A lot of people were saying recession last year, but in the end.
Yeah. And it technically, if you just look at the economic data, technically it didn't happen. You can argue that there were pockets of recessions for different people. Not all sectors did as well, but on the broad landscape, it didn't really happen. It technically happened in 2022. Recall that in 2022, we had 2 quarters of negative real GDP growth, which is a textbook definition of a recession, although it was never officially called because they said, well, other indicators like unemployment didn't really go up, so it's not technically a recession. But in theory, it was because we had 2 quarters of negative GDP. Also, recall in 2022, the stock market went down. Bitcoin went from 69,000 to like 17,000, right? There was a big big market crash in 2022. So I think that was the recession. It was just, it happened. It was never officially announced. And 2023, people were like, oh, well, we're expecting another recession. It just never really came. It already happened, I think, is what people have been saying on my show.
Yeah, it's fun. Good insights. Well, if you guys want more insights, go on David Lin Report. What are your long-term goals for your channel moving forward?
Well, I don't want to just do media. So media is always going to be there. I'm going to diversify my business into different things, fintech, different financial services, different technologies for consumers and retail investors. And I haven't, we're working on it. We're deciding what to do next with our product launch. But ultimately, I want this to be a fintech company, not just a media company. On the media side, I like several channels for different verticals, different types of finance content, covering different things, maybe a tech channel as well. I'm going to expand my written stuff. My newsletter will be expanded. So just everything you see here will be expanded. I'll have several different YouTube channels. I'll have several, my newsletter, which is once a week, will be eventually once a day at least. And then revenue streams, it won't just be from media. It'll be definitely from, I foresee most of my revenue in 5 years to be from products that have nothing to do with media.
It'll be fun to see the growth, and I'll have you back on my 0 to 1 million series.
Oh, okay. All right. Hopefully that happens. You know what? I think YouTube needs to make a plaque for 500,000 subscribers, because from 100,000 to 1 million is like a big jump. And like most people never get to 1 million, even if you have 100K. So I would like a middle plaque, like half silver, half gold or something.
You're not a half glass type of guy. You're going to that million. I know you. If you had one piece of advice for someone starting a channel today, what would it be?
Oh boy. I don't know. You probably, this question better than I do. You hear all this cliche advice, like find your niche, find your passion, talk about what you're good at. Do I have anything else?
I mean, that's exactly you though. You found your passion in your niche. Like you wouldn't work in any other niche. You were perfect for the finance world. And
yeah, well, I couldn't do anything else. You see me talk about anything else? Like I don't know anything about anything else. Like I literally cannot. But what advice would I give to people? I don't know, because the advice is so different. And I hear different advice from different other YouTube gurus who are like, oh, you got to post at a certain time. Most of them are completely wrong with their advice. It's like, you've got to have, you've got to do things in the intro differently. You've got to edit your videos differently. I think different advice works for different channels. Let me reframe your question. What advice would I give to myself? Let's say we're to start again, right? So I think I covered some of this already. Focus on the heavy hitter content in the very beginning instead of filling up slots. Now I can afford to do that just because I've grown an audience. But in the beginning, focus on quality versus just quantity alone. I think quantity and quality are the same. You need both to grow. You can't just have one good video a month. That will not do anything for you. You need to post more than that. Joseph Stalin used to say that there was a quote, quantity is a quality in itself.
Okay.
Kind of applicable. But in the very beginning, focus on quality, not quantity. If I had to prioritize one thing, I would say a lot of people stress for the podcast space. I can just talk about podcasting. A lot of people stress about having the perfect studio. I see so many people investing in a studio. I'm like, why do you need this? Nobody cares. This is my window. How much money was invested in my background? $0. I pay rent to stay here, and that's it. This mic, $200. Laptop. I mean, I've already had a laptop. I have a camera and a bunch of professional lights. You don't need more than that. It's nice to have a nice, big, fancy studio. People aren't going to watch your content because your background looks cool. People are going to watch your content if your content is interesting. Joe Rogan sits in the basement. Like Lex Friedman has a black curtain. Just cut it out with your $1 million studios. You don't need that. So I would say investing your time and resources in the wrong place in the beginning is not a good idea. And for me, At least I'm giving advice to myself, because I remember in February 2023, I was like, how do I design my studio? And I don't know if you remember, Richard, but my first videos were actually I filmed in my mom's basement because I was living with my mom in the first 7 months. Right, remember that? And
True. Yeah.
I didn't have any money to move out, and then finally I did. It was just a wall, and I had some like lights in the bottom to make it colorful, and I had a neon sign that I ditched because I don't have that anymore. So yeah, I would say focus on content creation first. Focus on consistency of publishing, frequency. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be twice a day. It could be once a week. If that's the frequency you want to decide on, you have to commit to that. Some of my friends started podcasts. They're like really excited at the beginning. They filmed 3 episodes and they stopped. I'm like, why'd you stop? Oh, it got too tiring. It got too, I'm like, I'm not getting any views. People give up after they're not getting any views. Well, you're not getting any views because you posted 3 times and you stopped. If you keep doing it, eventually you'll get picked up. So consistency of frequency, investing in content, not things that don't matter like your background, and focusing on the quality, not the quantity, are the 3 pieces of advice I would give myself.
I'm curious, are moments where you had high retention with everything you filmed? Have you seen like patterns that has led to higher retention on your videos? Because for podcasts, it's really hard.
I am experimenting with that because that is a problem. I'm starting to film more solo videos. Last year, I filmed solo videos. It took me a long time to prepare them, and I didn't have an editing team, so it wasn't high enough ROI for me. But my solo videos have consistent retention. Like it would peak, it would bottom at like let's say 50% and would just stay there. Whereas my podcast interviews would like start here and then just keep going down throughout the video. So I think people have higher engagement when they just watch one person speak, even though my solo videos overall don't have as many views. So that's one thing that I've noticed. The other thing that I've noticed is your first 60 seconds has to be really important. I started experimenting with different formats. Sometimes I would just go straight into the news.
Yeah.
So no introduction. That does very well, especially let's say if stock markets are crashing. I don't need a fancy intro. The first thing I would show in the video is stock markets are crashing today. Let's find out what's next with our next guest. And that's the intro. Within 5 seconds, you're talking about the content. If anybody asks me for advice on how to start an intro, I really, 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 really hate channel intros, like 10-second animation of like your banner or some stupid stuff. It's just like I really, really hate that. Don't put that in the beginning. Put that at the end if you want, but don't put that at the beginning. Start the content right away. I copied the Lex Fridman format, which is to have like clips. Not even Lex Fridman. A lot of people do this, right? Diary of a CEO. Like a lot of big YouTubers do this. They put like a 30-second highlight in the beginning. That's done well. But I'm not doing only that. Sometimes I would introduce my guest right away. Sometimes what's done well recently is I would talk about the news. Let's say Ukraine recently fired missiles into Russia, right? That was the opening. So I talked about what happened. Ukraine fired ATACMS into Russia for the first time. And then I had B-rolls or A-rolls of like, the missiles being sent in. You'd have some music, make it dramatic. To answer your question, there isn't one format that I feel does well. I think it's just you have to think about what the video is and just change the format accordingly. The first 60 seconds is really important. If your first 60 seconds doesn't retain people, the rest of the retention is going to be low. However, sometimes I see the retention spike in the middle. That's because I have timestamp chapters. So like sometimes the guest would like give a prediction in the middle or something, and then you would see retention spike. So that just shows me some people share the video from the middle, or they just scrolled ahead and like just watch the prediction or whatever the key spot is, and they just scrolled. And then sometimes it spikes in the middle. When it spikes in the middle, that's usually my cue to make a short from that clip, from that part.
And that's done well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna start doing more shorts.
And final question: what's your dream?
I'm living my dream now. I wanted to start my own media company, and I'm doing it. I'm living my dream. I don't have a lot of time now to do fun things, but I guess my next dream is to have a bigger team so I could take some evenings off.
You're still working 80 hours a week?
Well, yeah. My work hour doesn't change just because my team gets bigger. It just means I work on different things. It means I can make more content.
You see that, viewers? Even at 220K subs, millions of views per month, he's still working 80 hours. Don't slack off. Well, David, thanks for joining us on the 1 of 10 pod.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. And good luck. Yeah, congrats on your success, by the way. The 1 of 10 product launched. So I use it myself. So it's a great product. Congrats on that.
Guys, go on 1of10.com right now, since David Lin just said that. And you can click on this video of Frankie, who's another YouTuber who grew really fast from 0 to 100K in the poker niche. So thanks.